Hi, this is Patty Hodge, and this is at Dr. Nurses Rock. And I have a very special surprise for you today. I have a beloved friend of mine who I've known for many decades, and I'm very honored to have him as my friend and a person in my life. And so I would like you to know and meet and know Stevie B, and let him tell you the story of his journey. Now, we haven't done this before on Dr. Nurses Rock. It's a first for us. And I'm really grateful that Stephen has agreed to do this here. And so, what my hope is that we are a healing presence here on YouTube, and that will escalate and move out into the world and be a healing presence far out as we can get it.
Mm, mm.
So, Stevie B, Stephen, tell people who you are.
Okay, my legal name is Stephen McDonnell. Uh, I'm a psychotherapist. I work in New York City. Stevie B is my nickname given to me by my sister, Stevie Big Brother. So it's my artistic name and my fun name. It's my fun name, so it's my Zoom name. That's who I am.
Well, thanks for being here.
Yeah, great to be here.
So, we have these deep and wonderful conversations every once in a while, and then we go for months without talking to each other, and then all of a sudden we just pick up again.
Mhm.
And recently, I spoke to you because you have been undergoing a real major transformation in your life. And while we were talking, you agreed to share some of that and how the moment that you're in right now has something that has happened that has been beyond your wildest dreams, you said to me.
Exactly.
And because I know you to be a brilliant guy, I know you to be a spiritual man and a good psychologist, actually a social worker who knows his stuff, and a healer in the world. So I would like people to hear about your journey, hear about what has uh, happened that has come to this transformation moment for you.
Great. Well, I think the first thing I want to say as I hear you talking, Patty, is I think of myself as a wounded healer.
Yeah.
I love that expression. I think Henry Nouwen was the person who coined the phrase. And I think about that. I am a healer, but I also do my own work, and I have done my own work all my life. I've been maybe in psychotherapy myself and self-help groups for 40 years or something like that. In the last 8 years of my journey, I've been doing EMDR therapy with my therapist. And in the beginning of that process, I did double sessions for 5 years or something. So I've done a lot of work on myself. And I even think in my therapy practice, I actually was talking to one of my clients this week, and he said to me something about he appreciated how transparent I was about how transparent I am. I'm not a psychoanalyst in terms of having a blank face and a blank screen with people, but I share when it's appropriate, and I am attached to my clients and they're attached to me, but I share a lot of my own journey.
Yeah.
I think my clients appreciate, they learn from my process. I have another client that said that like she's learning from any steps that I make. She wants the same similar steps in her life, you know. So, and this client, the other client that I was talking about this week, was really funny. He said he gets a lot of he enjoyed this. There was a TV show that wasn't very popular for a while called Mom, about women in AA. And in one of the episodes, he said her therapist lost his crap. And the therapist wanted to end with the client, the character, and she said, "Oh no, no." She said, "I want a therapist that loses his crap," you know. So he said he felt the same way about me. They were glad to hear my journey. So I just want to say this thing about the wounded healer, that I've done my own work and continue to do my own work. I feel like I've been an adventurer and an explorer in the spiritual realm and the psychological realm all my life since I was a kid. I actually left home when I was 14 to go into a minor seminary to study to become a priest. So I've been on a journey my whole life of self-exploration. And so I start with that. And then what I thought we could talk about a little bit today, it's a big topic, but you'll have to tone it down for us, and for your
But
audience.
maybe it's the first of many. I hope that this will be
Okay.
an ongoing conversation. Yeah.
But I had a surgical intervention recently, which follows another surgical intervention that I had in 2001. And I'm going to have another little surgery. It's another major surgery in August. That transformed my life, and I've been preparing for it my whole life in a way. But I thought the topic for the day might be interesting to share with people about how does transformation happen in our lives?
Mhm.
Transformation that's psychological, spiritual, and even physical. What I'm thinking in terms of the topic, how does that happen? There's a couple of different words I might use from a spiritual. I come from a Christian tradition. I might use the word miracle. How do miracles happen? Or in the psychological realm, how do breakthroughs happen in our
Mhm.
lives?
Yes.
I even like the word from Jungian psychology about synchronicities. How do synchronicities happen? So you don't have to be a spiritual person. Even in the psychological language, we talk about synchronicities happening, or the self, capital S, self instead of God. So that's our big topic, I think, that I wanted to introduce for us today about
Sure.
and help people if they want transformation in their life. How could they use some of the tools we might offer them to have transformation? I mean, we all want changes, or as one of my clients says, he wants the cash and prizes. How do we get the things that we want, the goals we set in life, and what are our blocks to getting them? And we could have a conversation about all of this, about how does transformation happen. So,
Absolutely. That's an amazing topic, and I'm grateful that you want to explore that. So talk about, I mean, I can certainly identify with everything that you've just said. We've followed a pretty similar pathway, and I think that's what brought us together to begin with, and what holds us together. So tell our audience today, um, what happened? What steps happened to you? What were the synchronicities that occurred? How is this a miracle?
well, this surgery I just had is a cosmetic surgery, major surgery. I had I don't even know how to say it. You're the nurse. You tell me how to say it. Abdominoplasty. Uh, I don't like using the popular term that's out there today. It's called a tummy tuck. I don't like
Okay.
that because it sounds so minor. And this was actually major, major surgery.
Yes, it was. Now, would you like to let us know why you needed that surgery?
Well, yes, it followed. I had gastric bypass surgery in
Okay.
2001, and I lost 100 pounds, and I've kept the 100 pounds off all these years.
Amazing.
Now that surgery followed a whole lifetime of yo-yo dieting and being heavy and heavy set and losing weight and gaining weight, and that story goes back to even being 8 years old and gaining weight when I was 8 years old, and using food as an addiction in my life, and being a compulsive overeater and compulsive dieter. So had that surgery in 2001, but that didn't solve all my problems. I lost 100 pounds and then had all this excess skin and fat.
Right.
I was very unhappy with my body image. And I never in a million years dreamed that I would get cosmetic surgery. I mean, the way I was raised Catholic, and I was raised in working class families. So I just imagine people that had cosmetic surgery were either rich or vain, and I was neither of those things. So I never thought about it. I just decided to live with the body that I had, this new weight loss shaped body.
Yeah.
And then through a series of, we might get into this if you want to a little bit, a series of incidents, came to a friend of mine suggesting this current surgery to me in December. And something clicked in me, and I said, why not me? Why not now? And it became possible for me.
So the moment came where you were fully open to this possibility.
Well, I wasn't fully open.
Okay. But it presented itself to you.
It presented itself. That's a great word. It presented
Okay.
itself. A friend said, you're complaining all the time about your body image. And
Okay.
he did some research for me. Why don't you consider this? And I
Right.
said, wow, why not? I said, I can't afford it. It's expensive. It's out of pocket. It's
Oh,
it's only for vain people. I'm not a rich person. I'm not a vain person. Why would I do that?
I can hear all these people nodding, saying, "Oh, we get that." Yeah.
And then in a few days, all of a sudden I said, why not? I can afford it. I have a little bit of savings and things started to roll. And that's where I want to talk even about the synchronicities. I found the right surgeon,
Yes.
things, and then very quickly I got the first appointment with the surgeon, and then before I knew it, we had a date set, and before I knew it, I was in the ER, the OR.
That really is miraculous. It really is. And it took a lifetime to get there.
A
A
lifetime.
lifetime. And so
And the
when
transformation has been incredible. We can get into this a little bit if you'd like to, but it's
sure.
the physical healing and then the psychological healing. And then that was a lifetime. It healed a lifetime of problems for me in a way.
So let's just pause for one tiny second here for people who
Yeah.
maybe have been in a position where they have wanted a change in their life for a very long time. And, I used to hear this thing, well, in God's time. Well, doesn't that like put the pressure on where any place else but God to make this happen, maybe? Does that make sense to you? You've heard that saying in God's
Yeah.
time?
Well, I also want to go back to what the phrase you said right before that about
Sure.
we think we want something. We also sometimes don't even know what we want.
There you go.
I didn't really know that I wanted this until my friend suggested it. It was so on a back burner for me. I
But
hadn't even
someone heard your words.
someone heard me and reflected back to me
That's
in love and
yeah.
attachment said, I hear you talking about this, and here's what we call this thing. And he did some research for me and said, you can get this in Chicago, and here's how you get it. I got it in New York, of course, but it was like he heard me and reflected something back to me in love.
That's the miracle for me.
Okay.
That's the actually being heard.
Okay, that's part of the miracle.
That's part of the miracle. And I think that's what we offer to our clients, or when I was working, that I offered that to my clients on a minute by minute basis.
Right.
It's just hearing their heart,
We might call that presence. We might call that
presence.
resonance, empathies.
Or what was the other word that I learned a while ago in pastoral counseling or pastoral formation was redemptive listening.
Mm.
Okay. So now let's go back to where you this changed you almost entirely. You said psychologically, emotionally. Talk about the change a little bit.
Well, the cycle, well, first of all, well, the one thing I want to say about this is it was like the most important thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life. And I've had a lot
Wow.
of things happen to me.
Yes, you have.
Now, why I say that is when I think back to being 8 years old and beginning to overeat and be compulsive overeater, and growing up, I grew up in a very violent, alcohol addicted, uh, mentally ill mother family, father with a personality disorder family. So I grew up in a lot of abuse that lots of people are familiar with in terms of trauma. But at 8 years old, I began a journey of really feeling ashamed of my body. So 8 years old, and then as I said, shared briefly with you, I think in this interview, a whole lifetime of yo-yo dieting and being a
Yes.
teenager and a 20-year-old and a 30-year-old, and then having the gastric bypass surgery in 2001, a lifetime of shame and actually not being in my body. And I've been working hard to be in my body honestly for the last 30 or 40 years. I've been doing all kinds of body therapies, and I've done things like holotropic breath work and somatic experiencing and bioenergetics. And so I've worked on trying to get into my body for the last 30 years. But then what happened with the surgery was like, not only were they cutting away, my surgeon was cutting away fat and skin, she was cutting away a lifetime of shame and a lifetime of not I'm given a body for the first time in my life at 68 years old. I'm now in a body for the first time, although I've
Right.
been working at trying to be in a body for the last 30 years,
Yeah.
including being a dancer. I'm part of the dance troupe at a church in New York City, a part of a movement choir. but I've never really been in my body the way I'm in my body now and not dissociated out of my body. And
Amazing.
as I said, working in EMDR therapy for the last 7 or 8 or 9 years to be less dissociated, but I'm in a body. So the lifetime of transformation is cutting away all of the shame and the body image.
So you let that go as you were being cut open, really, or cut off those cells, those
Right. That's
yeah.
right. That's right.
The cells, we do hold memory in our bodies.
Uh-huh.
And one of the first videos that I put out that people who have followed me for a little while now was the ACEs, the childhood experiences
Oh.
that are traumatic, that stay with us throughout our lives, and that
Mm.
somehow create sometimes illnesses in people that have had one or more of these traumatic events. And so you're really tuned into all the things that we're trying to talk about here in,
Good.
on
Good.
this channel. And I think that what you have to say just in this little time has a great impact for a great many people. You've talked about so many things here. I think we're going to have to meet on a regular basis and pull them apart. Just so that people understand the length and the breadth and the depth of all that you're describing here.
You can
S-
answer this question or not, but let me ask you a question to think
sure.
about. Do you want to say out loud the things that you heard me say so far that you've been trying to say on the channel?
Well, I think when I first started this channel, it was I was very straightforward with people. I have never done this before. I said I'm putting myself out there in a way that I'm very not comfortable with. Um, but it was at the beginning of the year, and I had been in prayer and really contemplating, like, how can I be a better presence in the world in this moment when things are in such chaos, or I have the potential to be in tremendous chaos and pain for the duration of whatever is happening to us here in the United States of America. And so, literally in prayer, I woke up one morning and I said, I'm starting a YouTube channel.
Huh.
And that came as a result of actually, I have an autistic grandson who has a YouTube channel.
Hmm.
And if he could do it, I said, I can do it and I can come to him for help, right? So one of the things that I'm telling people is that I'm retired and my credentials are mostly in psychiatry as a nurse practitioner, and that there are things that have happened to people that they need. I think the term I used in one of my videos was we're just lifting the lid to let off the pressure
Hmm. Hmm.
for people. Just take a look in there and see what might be cooking that has is keeping you from having your best life. And so what I hear you talking about here is doing the work, which is amazing stuff. I too I think that all good therapists have to be in therapy. That's my personal opinion. I think that we have to have the experience of what we're trying to do for the people that we're in business with, in the business of helping. Um, but what I hear is a lifetime of feeling ashamed about your body, and I personally have understood that. I've had a weight problem all of my life, a weight issue all of my life. I don't want to call it a problem. It's a challenge. And I've been thin, I've been heavy. I'm right now, I'm where not exactly where I want to be, but better than where I was. And so this whole business of not perfect, but better is great with me, right?
Hmm.
What I hear from you is that you allowed yourself the time and the space to learn about yourself
Hmm.
and to honor the fact that other people had valuable input for you.
Hmm.
And that part of being in relationship, what's another thing that I say to people is we need a tribe.
Hmm.
We need to be in relationship for real healing to happen. And so someone actually listened to you and heard you and reflected that back, and it somehow opened up a space
Hmm.
for you. And so that's I think there's much more that I've heard you say.
Mm.
Uh, but since this is, a limited time that we're together right now, um, I want to hit the main points that you want to share today so that we're clear, that we're saying to people, I had this thing happen. This is how I dealt with it, and this is where it brought me. And right now you're saying you feel healed in ways that you have never felt healed before.
Well, this is kind of odd, but I do want to tell you about two major life changes that happened prior to this
Okay.
that I think are connected. 2 years ago, I needed to get divorced. I was in a relationship for 23 years and I needed to end that. My partner turned out to be a really bad alcoholic, and the last 4 years were really hell. And that was a hellish time for me 2 years ago. And I changed my whole life, including I was living in New York City and I needed to move out to rural Long Island, New York.
Hmm.
But it was really a hellish transformation and an ending in my life and a grief. And I spent 2 years grieving in a way. And somehow this newness, this resurrection, if you will, came about because of the death experience. And so I want to name that going through hell and going through hell for 4 years and ending a long-term relationship like that is somehow connected to this newness. And
Yeah.
the second thing I would mention, so there's that that preceded this, and then and also I can keep going backwards in my life and seeing all the things that were connected before this, including, like I said, starting therapy 9 years ago and doing all the double sessions and everything and doing EMDR. But as another thing that's happened after the divorce and the moving for me, I always make an annual retreat, usually in August. And the first August, I made a very odd retreat rather than a religious spiritual retreat. I went to Arthur Findlay College in London, where they teach how to be a psychic and
Yes.
psychic mediumship. But I made the trip when I made the intention to make the trip in August for my annual retreat. It was also about traveling alone, which I hadn't done in all those years of relationship. So it was an adventure that I went on this adventure on my own. I went with some people that I knew in a church in Washington, D.C. So I did have a little group that went with me. Anyway, I'm just mentioning that. Like, it was a commitment to making a trip by myself, and I went to a foreign country by myself, and that was an adventure. And then this last August, I wound up making this retreat again, a very odd retreat. It wasn't a spiritual retreat. It was to do breath work, holotropic breath work, which is a modality of using breath to have a transformational experience, almost the way people are talking about using psychedelics. You can use breath in a way to
Yes.
create an altered consciousness.
Mhm.
I did a week of that kind of breathing a year ago in August. So that expanded consciousness that got started there in that retreat is also connected to the surgery. And actually, the friend that said to me, "Would you want to have the surgery?" He was on that retreat with me. So he was also coming from that same place as I was coming from.
Okay.
And it's all connected. So those two things were milestones that also preceded my being open and aware. And I think this will be a topic we could talk about later in some other session or something.
Sure.
But the whole business of expanded consciousness. So we get out of our boxes and we get out of our defenses. What are things that create expanded consciousness, even if it's psychotherapy or a spiritual experience, or people are using psychedelics today? I'm not in any of that. I'm sober today. I've been sober for like 30 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. But I don't want to use alcohol and drugs to get there, but the breath helped me get there. And we can use
Yes.
people go into the woods and have a week in the woods to have an expanded state.
Oh, and yoga and
Yoga,
other,
expanded
yes.
states can change our consciousness and
Yes.
create change. So I just wanted to mention those milestones that are also connected and we're connected into this experience. And here's another topic, which again we could hold. We'll put in the parking lot for another time. But
Sure.
I did a professional conference a few months ago. One of the therapy models that I work in is actually working in the realm of psychedelics. But some of the biological researchers who are working in with psychedelics are talking about critical periods. You would probably know that as a nurse, that we open up a critical period of learning that was closed and then therefore is now open in these moments, and can we use them when they're open to open a critical period of learning. So
Hmm.
for me, this surgery is opening up something new for me. I have to learn how to live in this new body in a way that was closed a long time ago for me, but I've opened up a critical window. It might not be called critical window. It's called critical period. I think it's called the technical term.
Okay.
So it's another topic we could talk about someday, but
Yeah, I would love to do that. I think the way that I described the periods of returning back to school and times of transformation in my own life, I say um, that a window opened. That's how I described it. A space opened in my life where that was the focus. I was able to manage life on both sides of this opening, right? But yet, when I got through it, I was through it, and that window closed. It was done.
yeah,
And so I can see that it's sort of in the realm of I always think about Rupert Sheldrake and some of his work and what he calls morphic fields and things. And I mean, those are fascinating things, and I don't claim to really understand all of them, but I know that I've had experiences that I can't put words to
mhm.
often, and that I'm very grateful when someone is willing to explore those things. So maybe we could call it a day on this particular topic, unless you have something bigger to
Well, the
talk.
only thing I think we should talk about for a few minutes is how could people use any of this information for themselves?
Let's do it.
Like, let's make it practical.
Yes, go ahead. Let's make
I'm
it.
not quite sure. I don't have the answer to that. If I could name a few things off the top of my head, you mentioned we sometimes have a goal or we sometimes have an intention.
Yes,
I suggested that we also maybe sometimes don't even know what we want, but we think we know we want some sort of change, like that we either want something positive or we want something bad to end. I think
yes,
those are the two things that happen in life. We want something to end or we want something to start. So intention is part of it. Do we talk to others about our intention? Do we have community? Do we have people, good friends, like you're my soul friend, and I would talk to you about something I want to change, and you give me feedback or you give me something from a different perspective than I'm not even thinking about for myself. We have two different kinds of thinking styles. I think
yes.
talking about it with somebody else is helpful. I think increasing our energy, again, I don't know what I even mean by that, but when we have an intention and then we also it's a little bit of what I was talking about expanded consciousness. Like, do we do something that also does something not only with the intention? I don't know. I don't know what I want to say about that. But do we go to the ocean? Do we go to the mountains? What do we do with the intention? But we do something energetically to cook. If there's a fire that needs to cook sometimes when we have an intention that
Yeah.
transforms the intention into the miracle. I use prayer. I mean, I'm a spiritual person, so some of this intention language I would think about in terms of prayer. How do I use prayer? I want to mention to some folks, and you just said that in terms of closing a window, closing a door and a window opens.
Mhm.
You often reach dead ends in our intentions, or our intentions don't follow through the way we want to follow them through. So that's and you talked about in the beginning about God's time, things happen in God's time. I have one client that I've been working with, for example, for 10 years that wanted to move away from the city he was living in. And we've worked at that for 10 years, and he finally just had the breakthrough that he wants his
Yeah.
whole life. It's all falling into place, but it took 10 years.
Yeah, and I certainly have those experiences to share as well. I was in a marriage that was dreadful for many, many, many years, and it takes there comes a critical moment.
Um,
There comes a critical moment, and there is all along there's prayer, and all along there's complaining and all along there's talking to people and, therapy and this and that,
Planting seeds, the intention is a lot of planting seeds.
planting
And it comes
seeds.
through in a breakthrough
Correct.
or it works in the unconscious. And all of a sudden, then we take action and we're ready to do, we're ready to act.
So let's tell the people that have stayed with us so far that
They get a
that
prize.
there's
They get the cash and prizes.
there is a light at the end of these tunnels of feeling like
Right.
this
Right.
is an awful period of life and a dark night, as we've also heard that called. And dark nights can last for quite a long time. It's not just a 24-hour day. And sometimes it is a decade or more, or an entire life, 68 years trying to be comfortable in the skin that you're born into, that you enter the world into. Um, so there are plenty of miracles available for us. There's no limit on that.
Miracle, transformation, synchronicity,
It's
joy,
all there.
happy,
And
happy, joyous, and free.
and love is really the thing that
Love,
drives
love.
love is really the thing that drives it all. So when we're open to really knowing how loved we are,
Mhm.
then I think all parts of us are willing to take little risks that we didn't know were available
Absolutely.
to
That's
us.
the key. That's the key to my whole life, I think.
Okay, so there it is. So I think we can stop with that today then.
Okay.
And what I'm going to say to my viewers right at this moment is that you are an absolute gem, and I love you.
Thank you. I
I'm
love you too.
so grateful that you're here, and we must do this again.
Okay.
And I want to make an invitation to the viewers to, when you read through this or watch this video that we're putting out to you today, if you have questions or comments, really put them in the comment column there, or go to the posting session here on YouTube and let us know what questions you have, and that will help fuel the next thing that we bring to you.
Okay.
If we continue this conversation or go into another topic or whatever it is. And I think as long as you're open and willing to be available to my
Sure. Of course.
subscribers,
Sure.
and I'm grateful, and I think that we'll just say thank you to you.
Gratitude is also important. It's
Perfect.
part of the process.
Love and gratitude and miracles. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.